What is going on, everyone? Astrologer Eric Rosen. Welcome to Celestial Conversations from Chaos to Clarity. This is the weekly astrology horoscope where I take a look at the bigger transits of the week happening in the astrology that affects us all as a collective and all the vibrations and all the craziness, but the harmonics that we can create through the craziness and actually be conscious creators. That's the benefit of these times in a nutshell, is that as it seems like the things that aren't working and the strife and the struggles of structures not working, it's opening up brand new fields of dream creations of what we want to do instead. And so this week is no different, but there are specific details here to be looking at. Of course, before I get into this week, if you want to book a personal astrology reading, hit me up for that link. And if you want to be a late bloomer and jump into Higher Self Rising, the group coaching program that I do every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Time, hit me up for that link as well. And those links might also be around this video. With the astrology readings, too, just FYI, I mean, it's maps for the curious of people that are ready to leave that old identity and they know that they need to become something newer in themselves in order to go forward into the future. So this is quantum astrology. This isn't your mom's astrology reading. I think sometimes people don't know that until they sit down with me and they're like, I've never had astrology reading like that before. It's like, yep. So anyways, enough tooting my own horn. Let's talk about the theme of this week. I'm seeing this week as kind of like there's a surface level that's really beautiful and awesome and extroverted. And there's this much deeper layer that we have to like look into in terms of the past and what's going on in our inner world in order to make the whole angelic bells and whistles blossoming of everything that we're doing on the outside and the deep gratitude and appreciation for however fast or slow things are moving and not trying to control the rhythms of life of how fast things are going. That outside part is the fact that we still do have that beautiful sextile between Neptune that is retrograde at 0 degrees of Aries, but this is the last week that it's going to be in Aries before it retrogrades back into Pisces for a bit. Of course, I'll be talking about that more next week. And so that Neptune is still making that nice sextile to Pluto that's now direct in Aquarius, and then to Uranus that's still in Gemini retrograde that won't come back into Taurus until November. So it's warp speed energy, and it's like the Millennium Falcon. It's Han Solo, but he's got his hand on the throttle. He's about to start throttling down. So all this like timeline jumping, quantum shifting, that if you're in the spiritual know, hopefully you've been doing some of that, seeing that your thoughts, decisions are influencing the trajectory of where you're going. So pay attention to that. That North Node in Pisces has been in a gene key gate too that actually deals very much with the Akashic records and the butterfly effect extrapolation of every thought, word, action that we have. And so, you know, the rewards, I think of the timelines that we're going on is kind of, it's a humbleness of just natural human kindness and empathy so that we don't kind of get into a little bit too much of a Midas touch area where it's like we're chasing gold, but then you get it and it's not soul fulfilling because it was coming from the ego. It was like a death march into trying to like fix things or make reality better, trying to make ourselves feel better by doing things on the outside. This is very much a return to the soul and seeing where is the soul dejected, where might we, you know, be spiritually anemic and kind of like zombies. Because it's like if we're not excited, if you're not excited about what you're creating in life and where your future is going and you can't feel that, we need to have a conversation, you know, because this is beautiful stuff and we cannot let the illusions of what the world's telling you to feel inform you of that. You're not a bad person if you don't fall for the narrative of being forced to think that you're a bad person, if you don't have empathy for a certain group of people or a war situation or this, that, or the other thing. It's not about sides. You have empathy for everyone. But in typical Libra season fashion, we can't be a social justice warrior if we're not actually living out our value systems that are actually more concrete, more solid in the structures of what it is that we're doing. Talk is cheap. Just ask this grand air trine that we were just coming out of. You know, sure, it feels, you know, beautiful, but we have to really be rooted in the truth of what it is that we're actually talking about and creating and manifesting in our lives in order for it to actually have the wings to go into the future and actually make an impact. And so the other part about this week is definitely this healing the past aspect of things. And I was really mesmerized by the fact that looking at all the transits, that it wasn't just the transits, but then also even when I looked at the end to see what gene key that the South Node in Virgo is in, and that's even dealing with transmuting the past. So, it's transmutation of the past. It's facing our fears and our anxieties and our stressors in order to evolve. And so fears, of course, come from the history of the past. So it's like whether you look at all the healing that comes up from this week's Sun opposed Chiron, Sun square Jupiter, Sun quincunx Saturn, even that Saturn retrograde that's making a trine over to Jupiter, there's so much deep healing of the past that wants to come up and dealing with those phobias and dealing with those fears, that if we're moving too quickly into not paying attention and going too fast, we'll miss it. So we got to pay attention to our inner emotional world, how we're feeling. It's going to shift dramatically when Neptune goes back into Pisces, and it can feel a little bit lost, if we've been basing our entire lifestyle on the external fruits of the labor of the outside reality, because Neptune's going to come back and be like, hey, here's that last hurrah for the next 160-ish years to see where are the delusions where we're not actually truly paying attention to our divine connection within ourselves. So it will be interesting because our intuition is going to kind of be like one side of us that got very Neptune and Aries of into action. I've been calling it intuitive action. You get the hit and you take the action immediately. And then there's going to be this other side that's going through this very past life review and reviewing the past in general, that is going to be a lot of soul level self-reflection that deals with the past. And so we're almost setting up the dominoes with a lot of these transits for the healing this week. When you look at this, number one, just a reminder, it's don't, whether it's this week or especially when Neptune goes back into Pisces next week, it's don't fall into the hopelessness pits, don't fall into also the dogmatic projection of how things should be for you or for other people. That's just bucking the responsibility of transmuting and healing the past. That Sun opposed Chiron, this week is definitely saying hey, the alignments to really truly embody where we need to go. It's we need to look at and pay attention to go, am I coming from that wounded place, especially in our relationships, or am I coming from an evolved place of healing, learning the lessons to be a better role model, to be a better guide? So it's really interesting this week is that Venus in Libra, she's not making aspects to anything. So there's kind of a free-for-all a little bit in terms of the choices that could be made in terms of relationships and even the physical prosperity nature of things. And so we got to really pay attention to make sure we're staying in balance and alignment, because she's a firefly. There's a lot of freedom there. And so we almost have to kind of go back to what's going on our own individual level and our subconscious with the past in order to make sure that we're doing self-authorship and leadership that actually makes sense, to not go backwards into old unhealed patterns of relationships. So that Sun that is also squaring over to Jupiter, it can feel like not good luck, not good fortune, especially in the realm of relationships, family situations, and that could be outer or inner, a combination of both. I think the ultimate, lesson here, because those squares always bring that up, is that, in order to expand and actually create a more solid foundation and feel soothed and to really immerse ourselves in the vision for our lives, so where we want to go, our thoughts have to be simply in alignment with it. We have to be thinking and behaving as the person that says that we value peace and harmony and alignment, and those are, the Sun showcasing that's a lot of what's behind anything that it is we're trying to manifest in this physical reality. So it's about not getting overwhelmed by the thoughts or the emotions as well, and kind of just like, what is it that I need to do to balance out? Do I need to go drink some water? Do I need to go, dance and do a little bit of ecstatic dance? Do I need to go for a walk? Like, it really just depends. It's okay to swing back and forth through the extremes, and they're likely to happen with this transit, but we can't create like a snowball effect that like digs our own grave, where we start pushing against the obvious needs that we have to just like take better care of ourselves. And so we need to pay attention to those things. Now, that sun is also making that little faded quincunx over that Saturn retrograde. And so Saturn is that scorekeeper. It's got its own signature system of keeping track, making sure that we're making those ethical long-term decisions. With that sun, it's like, sure, weigh things out, but whether you look at the fact that Mercury and Mars are conjuncting in Scorpio this week too, it's like, we got to pay attention to this bigger picture, especially because, this conjunction brings up how that South Node's in Virgo, and it's like, it can't just be the quick, just get to a better position, just to feel better, the instant gratification of these transits. It's the bigger, wider picture, right? It's whether you look at that Neptune in Aries that is the home of Mars, or Uranus in Gemini that is, Mercury in Scorpio as well, just that home. I think we have to like look at this as kind of like the thoughts that they gotta start aligning with the higher evolved sense of spiritual self. Like, we can't take it for granted anymore, the opportunities, whether you want to look at this from the whole blown astrology of a deep ancestral healing aspect of just the gratitude to like look at all the opportunities that are available to us. You could look at how far we've come by, facing our personal tragedies, shadows, right? That Jupiter and Chiron square brings that up. And so this is, honestly, like, gratitude throughout the day is like the BFF, because keeps us in that humble alignment to see, do we need to keep seeding some really awesome quantum level intentions and be moving in that warp speed Han Solo direction? Or do we need to make sure we're not pushing too hard, coming from a wounded place, trying to like fix something that we're developed almost a spiritual amnesia, and we don't even know what the program is that we're running. We're trying to fix something. And it's like, well, I'm doing this because I'm trying to get this thing. But it's like, but why are you trying to get that thing? It's almost like we're going to be shining the spotlight, and it's going to be a floodlight, maybe hard to see at first. And Neptune goes back into Pisces of like, we're looking at our own kind of delusions and patterns of just the insanity of like the motivation subconsciously behind why we even do what we're doing. It's looking at it from this more spiritual matter of fact standpoint that like we have to be autonomous and completely disconnect from all of these subconscious programs, whatever level they come from. And it's the responsibility to not even go, well, it's outside of me, or it's from the world, or politics, or religion, or my family, or my ancestry. It's like, well, you gotta call bullshit though, and say that you came down here as a soul to evolve through this, and mature through this karma. And so there is a lot of maturity this week to be on point, with where it is that we're putting those thoughts, those intentions, that energy. I think that, honestly, my most favorite transit that's happening right now, because we're going to get to kind of saute into this like for a little bit, or, maybe sauntering is a better word, because it's like saute suggests the heat. Honestly, it'd be nice if it wasn't so hot, like with the energy, depending on how you handle it, where it's that Saturn retrograde in Pisces trying over to Jupiter. That can be really beautiful. It's definitely creating a really beautiful backdrop energetically in so many just beautiful ways of just like pastel colors of like cleaning up the past. This is about making space for the grief, the healing, the responsibility for, our side of the narrative, the adventures that we've went on in the past, there's a beautiful study here to see like what is the impact that we have made with our thoughts, choices, and actions, so that we can just become better spiritual beings, that we're becoming what can almost seem like silent role model, but you're embodying it in your energetic field without judgment or criticism of what the world's doing, to showcase like this is what it's like to be in a peaceful vibration contained in your own aura, and not getting seduced, getting pulled into this like reptilian, like, come here, like, come look at all the futility of humanity and the drama and just the hopelessness and the narratives and all of it. And that we're conscious creators, even when we're just paying attention how we're feeling in our vibration and just taking care of ourselves. It doesn't always have to be this extroverted nature of constant churning of output. I saw one astrologer that was making a prediction that he thought Neptune and coming back into Pisces might kind of be the fall of social media, and that's a possibility. You kind of talked about the desensitizing of just we've had so much of it. I think that if anything, it's probably going to be more. Social media is still there, but how much of it gets taken over by more of the dark side of artificial intelligence, where it's not even like real creativity anymore. And so a lot of this soul level connection is to make sure that we're not losing our creativity. Like, we're getting to a place now where we have to, it's like a use it or lose it. You have to use your spiritual gifts, and you have to make conscious, bold choices to be that. And it's a good week to do that and double down on that, especially when the healing, the personal needs call for it, or like an extroverted nature of expressing that outwardly into the world. We will get that bonus with Neptune and Pisces that kind of helps remind us of that, but it's not about the regurgitation of our track record of what we've done already spiritually. Like, no one cares. I'm sorry to say it, but like we're new quantum shifts now, where we have to have the full embodiment of like this wholesome spiritual nature. And sometimes it can seem like there's not many of us left. There's too many, there's been a lot of pitfalls, but I think a lot of this energy, that's why it's coming up to heal the past, is that the divine is always giving us an opportunity to get back on track and to be that light worker, to be that expression. So I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what we've done, because like there is karma, but the nice thing is that with that North Node where it's at, it's like more instant karma of like you get the feedback. I've literally experienced this, and I mentioned this on a men's group coaching call the other day, where it was like, I will experience, actually no, it was a group, it was the Higher Self Rising group coaching call. Mentioned that like if I have a negative thought or criticism about someone, within 30 seconds, like I will start like feeling like not good. And then it's like, whoa, what is this? And it's like, oh, because I had that Akashic record, thought of criticism, but because we're all connected, through this oneness aspect, it reflects back on to me as well. But also you just, even from the standpoint of all this astrology too, of just like, bringing that guilt to the surface. Like, ooh, I feel bad that I did that. But then it's not letting guilt be the trailhead. It's going behind the why of that too. Like, okay, I feel guilt, or I feel this, or I'm healing this, but like, why am I healing this? Or why am I doing this thing? It's an outward action. It's about getting deeper a little bit into the psychology of it. And, like, it's South Node in Virgo, so it's not so much about the systems of things. It's North Node in Pisces. It is more about a soul level understanding of like what motivates us, because otherwise it becomes too easy to go on to autopilot. And then when we get the inspiration, but then it goes away as a human, then it can almost produce like a weird imposter syndrome or something, because we still have the human part to deal with in the South Node. Like, you can't get away from it. And so part of that human piece right now is really just going in and facing what are we really afraid of, Like, if we're eternal souls and we're going to be all right, which we really fucking are, like, it's actually really beautiful. But, especially to like I'm going to just speak freely here and channel the freelancers of like creators, of like thought innovators, but not ones like trying to like force leadership onto others, but are just there to like literally inspire and like bring the quantum vibrations into your own creations and just muse on these things and see who it draws in through that magnetism. So I think that there's a lot of, you know, beautiful insights that can come from this week in terms of these soul level spiritual reflections of the healing, that what makes us tick, part of it. And that actually we go further by embracing our sensitivities, by not ignoring them, by not suppressing them. Like, duh, like who figured, you know, like shadow work 101, like, and it's not like the hard shadow work, but it depends, you know, like some people, like they're running into like mini delays or delays on their life, and it all really depends on how much they're owning their vibration as a soul and what they're doing and the karma in that. And so if you've been doing the work and seeing good karma, like, you know, good things are coming. But it's like continue to deal with it and just, you know, face the stuff that comes up, because there's insights there. We don't lose track. We don't lose perspective of why it is that we're doing, you know, what we're doing. And it's not that we got to go on this healing hamster wheel and spend all day long like reflecting on stuff, because it's not so much about a mental thing. It's like just make it simple and go into the emotional body and see what comes up, you know. But it's like it's South Node Virgo, so it's like you could literally have all these like words, you know, written down and systems and notes and just, you know, studying and like looking at these things and try to like use the words and use the like the mental reinforcement to try to satisfy the reality. But that North Node in Pisces, surfing that Akashic Ocean, is saying kind of like there's pulses and vibrations that are just coming through that, especially with Saturn retrograde Pisces, there's more of that divine timed aspect of things, and there's more freedom and liberation in that. Like we've officially broken the clock that governs this reality, and to create a sense of timelessness, and we can get into flow and just do the beautiful things that we really enjoy. And so the only reason, you know, for the past reflections now is just to see, is there a lesson or is there any stuckness in order to slingshot us into that higher vibration. So, you know, don't get hung up in the past, the over processing, but it is there, especially to feel the emotions, feel what's going on in the body, because it's an instant feedback informant to like take us on what can seem like the roller coaster of the unknown. But hallelujah, the unknown is because we're the magicians, we're the creators now. You know, like the red tape has lifted. And even though we're, you know, going to be revisiting some old energy and some things, especially like that are more like extroverted, like out there, will seem like it'll probably get put on pause these next few months in terms of this new world and creation. It's just going into a deepening into our soul and our values, especially when that Neptune and Uranus retrograde back into their old signs, Pisces and Taurus, and they make a beautiful sextile to each other. It's like, if there was ever a time to get back on solid footing as a soul and just, you know, dealing with like any perceived messes, or really just even just dealing with the fears, the illusions of time, or where am I at in life? Am I behind? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And just, you know, it's just, it becomes more solid. It's pure embodiment practice. So that's, you know, a little bit down the road, but like I said, the dominoes are in place this week for these deeper soul level reflections. And so I'd say my main warning would just be watch out for the decisions in relationships, especially, you know, Venus, no aspects, and especially Mars, Mercury in Scorpio. Like, do you really need to have it? Like, do you need to have it as much as you think? And it's about making space each day to zoom out and see like what's meant to be a part of our future going forward. The easiest part to look at that is like, does it fit the evolved value systems, and that the things that we're doing in life, they just fit the full completion of the lessons of everything that we went through as a soul to align is going, well, the showcasing of learning that lesson is I do things this way now. Like this is how I value myself and love myself in life, and this is how I create now. So anyways, if you want to get a personal astrology reading, that quantum style astrology reading, or you want to join Higher Self Rising, hit me up. I'll send you those links, or they might be around this video. Appreciate you all. And tune in next week. Tune into your vibration too this week. Make sure that you're paying attention. It's very